Good Tuesday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, we'll talk Cavs getting ready for Game 2 against the New York Knicks. Browns, though, with players and coaching staff in Berea for the voluntary portion of the offseason program. Kevin Stefanski talked about the reception. New defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz has gotten out in Berea.
Yeah, I would say it's early. I think a lot of this is getting to know their teammates, some of their new teammates. But obviously, having Coach Schwartz in the room yesterday and just his vision for our defense and how we're going to play and talking through it with each one of the position groups, I think is an exciting part of what this offseason is. It's getting to know Coach Schwartz and his style and how it's different, how sometimes it's maybe a little bit the same, but how it's different, where the guys fit into it. So I think all of that is exciting when you talk about year one for that defense.
What about for you personally? I mean, you didn't really have much of a relationship with him before you got here.
Yeah.
What's it been like the last couple of months to get to know him personally?
Yeah, Coach has been great. Like I told you guys when we hired Coach, I mean, in a lot of ways we're very similar in terms of our background, kind of where we're from, those type of things. We see the game very, very similarly. I'm very, very blessed to have Jim Schwartz. I walk out of my office, I got Coach Schwartz on the left, I got Bill Callahan on the right. I mean, I'm blessed to have the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of experience with those two guys.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. And, Jeff, that's kind of what I said I had hoped the Browns would do with their defensive coordinator all along. Get, for lack of a better term, Bill Callahan on the defensive side of the ball. And Kevin Stefanski and the front office did do that.
Well, and, a situation like this, and Coach Stefanski being an offense-oriented coach, you basically want to be able to say that I have a defensive coordinator that I can put the defense in the hands of. And, the track record for Jim Schwartz speaks for itself. The fact that there's head coach experience. And, of course, with Bill Callahan, it is year 4 for Coach Stefanski, but you still like to be able to have, guys who have been in the position that you're in that you can lean on. You still like to be able to pick a brain every now and then, even as Coach Stefanski ages more and more and, his time in the league becomes longer. It's nice to have guys that, you can go to. And, a guy like Jim Schwartz, we're going to get to it here. Obviously, the players seem excited. But it's a brand name. It's a brand name hire that you brought in here, and it's basically, Coach, here, here's the defense. You let us know what you need. We're going to do the best to supply what you need to make this the defense you think it can be, and that is the expectation: is that this defense is going to get back, if not to what the defense was in 21, but at least light years better than the defense was in 2022.
Yeah, without question. And along the lines, Greg Newsome talked about the reports that he requested a trade, and also his role in a Jim Schwartz defense.
I was mad. I really just don't think people really truly understand how much, first of all, Cleveland means to me. Like getting drafted here, the fans embracing me right away, just things like that. So I really just don't understand, something like that. I wouldn't do that. I truly adore Cleveland. So I was definitely mad. I think that was the last year's issue. Now with a new defensive coordinator, just, being able to sit down, talk to him, see a new scheme and things like that. I feel like a little bit last year, I feel like I was more of a linebacker, in certain instances than an actual cornerback. Talking to, Jim Schwartz and being able to, getting his new scheme and things like that. I feel like we'll work very well together.
So are you open to playing some inside?
Yeah, I feel like that was never, the clear issue was just not me playing in the slot. Against Cincinnati, guarding a guy like Tyler Boyd, guarding guys like that, I have no problem with doing that. I just feel like in certain cases, it was just I was more of a linebacker than a cornerback.
And Jeff, when it's explained like that, I wouldn't want to do that if I was Greg Newsome either. That's not my skill set.
Well, I mean, if you're a guy who most of his life has played on the outside, you agree to be the guy that's going to go play on the inside, and now all of a sudden it's, oh, well, if it's a run assignment, you've got Derrick Henry. That's a whole new ballgame for a cornerback. And I think Jim Schwartz, and, I think Jim is going to mix things up, and I don't think we're just going to say Greg Newsome's going to be the nickel for every rep that he takes for this team. There'll probably be certain matchups that maybe he likes or prefers to put somebody else on the inside. But this is kind of also what happens. When guys don't get things in clarification, and it's great that Jim Schwartz came in, and obviously he's been here for a while. but do you formally, sit down and, understand, what the expectation is of each role or each position within somebody else's defensive scheme? You don't know until you know. Hearing Greg talk like this, and it seems like obviously the focus was spoken a lot more in the coverage aspect of it. And for Greg, look, playing time is playing time. You don't want to be the guy on the outside looking in. And so, if you have to adapt a little bit and it means more reps, obviously that's something, you're looking to do, something you're going to do. And we've only heard about the nickel. I mean, he still has a chance to win the outside starting job, and maybe he'll kick inside, when the Browns go to a nickel and dime package. But it's good to see that Greg Newsome, and it appears everybody's on the same page. And, basically a headache has, been avoided before maybe the headache even was really there.
Yeah, and so another recurring theme, Myles Garrett just talked about Jim Schwartz and what he sees in his role in this defense.
I was excited for the opportunity. I know he's worked with a lot of great players, a lot of great defensive linemen, gotten the most out of those guys, and he plays wide open, as they say. Letting guys just run free and make plays on the ball. And he has the guys behind us cleaning everything up and making sure that they're coming downhill and that we're causing chaos, and they're cleaning up everything up behind us. And I think that's how it should really function.
Early kind of interactions been with him?
Positive. We've been talking scheme a little bit as far as what he expects out of me, where I'm going to line up, and the kind of positions I'll be in on first and second down. I haven't really talked about third down yet, but just how he's planning to change my play style, which from how we've talked, not that much.
And Jeff, as you watch Myles Garrett talk, he kept smiling. And at the end, he smiled a lot. He kept smiling when he talked about his conversations with Jim Schwartz.
Well, think about it. He did say we haven't even talking about third down yet. So, and this is what, for base defense, first and second down. And to Myles' credit, over, the last couple of years, as far as, being a guy who did his role, he's gotten exponentially better. But sometimes, asking him, hey, just make sure, the run stays inside of you. Yeah, that's great that a player does his assignment, but sometimes it almost feels like, you're not asking for everything. A guy like, Myles Garrett, what's his assignment be? Wreak havoc, blow things up, regardless if it's the run or it's the pass. And he, to be able to tell him, say, hey, if you think you can beat this guy on the inside, and instead of a 2-yard run gain, you're going to make it a 3-yard loss on 1st and 10. That gets us right to where we want to be in nickel and dime situation. A player like Myles, just so unique, so athletic. And I think one of the things that's probably greatly, greatly misunderstood is his love for the game, his knowledge for the game. And as it just gets better and better as his career goes on, it's, trying to find a way to get that impact out of him on 1st and 2nd down in run defense, as well as, getting the impact that you get in obvious passing situations with a player like Myles. You want him to be able to succeed in every aspect. And I think Jim Schwartz is going to allow him to open up and be a little more free with his play style here and gamble every now and then so he can, have a bigger impact earlier in series, is obviously in 1st and 2nd down.
Yeah, and you know what? It's going to be fun to watch him kind of let those guys up front loose a little bit. Deshaun Watson also met with media, talked today. One of the things he talked about is what the Browns are getting with the new tight end who he played with in Houston, Jordan Akins.
Akins, he's a playmaker. He's a guy that played a lot of ball, made some big plays down in Houston, when I was there and then even last year. So having this addition, to an already, stout tight end group with Chief and Harrison and Zaire, that's a great room to be around, and a great, opportunity for them to be able to take their room and that position to a whole nother level for this offense.
And, Jeff, that's a guy that's familiar with the way Deshaun Watson plays. That'll help in the red zone quite a bit.
No doubt. Between the red zone, between the hash marks, the athletic ability isn't a question mark. A former minor league baseball player in Jordan Akins. It certainly helps that he has a repertoire, with Deshaun Watson already, where the two are very familiar with each other. What do you do in a situation if Akins is on the field with David Njoku, with Amari Cooper, with Elijah Moore, with Donovan Peoples-Jones? You can't cover everybody. And when you have a guy like Akins who could possibly be a fifth man, be a fifth option, I should say, when he's out there, in a pass set and a pass play, there's not a lot of guys that can cover him. As they say, he's probably too quick for the linebackers. He's too big for the safeties. So the Browns have a special duo at the top there at the tight end position, because these guys, as good as they are overall tight ends, they're just mismatched nightmares because they're just too big, too fast, too athletic for, most people to be able to handle. So, anytime you can just continue to upgrade the weapons. And again, didn't spend a lot to do it and bring in Elijah Moore. Didn't spend a lot to do it to bring in Jordan Akins. But, trying to do everything you can to make sure that 200 and, some odd investment in Deshaun Watson does everything it can to hit.
Yeah, and along those lines, some of the new Browns are trying to recruit former teammates. Take a look. The chosen one, that's Juan Thornhill, trying to get Jerick McKinnon, Jet McKinnon 1. Need a place to stay in Cleveland. You know what? If it works, that's a guy that again, one-year deal, an incredible pass catcher out of the backfield, pretty good running back as well.
Just another, playmaker here. And if you, spend any time watching the Chiefs last year, they basically had some designed things for him, where he would basically run his route behind the offensive line in the red zone and basically pick a gap, between a guard and a tackle, and almost kind of like use it to kind of like legally pick the middle linebacker who had his assignment. And just, middle linebackers really can't run vertically with him. And it led to a lot of easy touchdown passes for Patrick Mahomes. It's a copycat league. He's out there, he's available. It certainly, doesn't hurt to have, a former teammate recruit. And the fact that you could get maybe another guy in the building with championship experience, as, you're trying to create that is the expectation of this team and create that within the locker room. You need more guys who have been around it who can do that. It'd be a fun signing. There's no question about it. The Browns could probably get a player or two like that in the draft if it goes that route. But if, it's something where you can make it work money-wise, make it work simply, the Browns would be pretty foolish to, probably pass that one by, because I think he would be, a Nick Chubb insurance policy, a combination of him and Jerome Ford. If you had to go that route for a week or two, I think it would be a bad option.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we'll hear from Deshaun Watson a little bit more. We'll also hear from Mari Cooper. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Deshaun Watson talked about the adjustments for him going into year two, and also dealing with some of the national opinions that he's no longer among the NFL's elite quarterbacks.
I don't say anything. I mean, that's, their own opinions. I know who I am. This organization know who I am. And the guys that I play with know who I am. And, so, I mean, everyone have their own opinions of what they want to, say, or how they want to, kind of just the fact of last year. But at the end of the day, I have an opportunity to go out there and prove what I need to prove in 2023, and that's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on what anybody else have to say. Of course, I mean, we're still going to continue to grow. I play a little bit different style than the previous quarterbacks they had here. The play calling is going to be different. It's a different style of, quarterback play that Kevin had around. He was, with Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum, and then, go from, Baker to Jacoby, then to me, it's kind of different styles of playing what I was doing in Houston. So, it's always growing. We always continue to try to, find ways to improve. We're going to have our battles and our challenges, but you got to be able to adjust and move forward from that.
And Jeff, he's going to be motivated to play well, without question. But the second part of that, it's a different style for Kevin Stefanski and for Deshaun Watson. I want to see what this offense looks like. I want to see what Kevin Stefanski is able to do with an elite quarterback. He hadn't had a guy with the skill set before.
He also hasn't had a guy with the overall running ability, which is, something, I'm not saying you're going to call design runs. And, of course, there's always going to be the option for Deshaun to use his legs. But, as I was saying earlier, I mean, you get to, you're going to go with a shotgun set, Nick Chubb in the backfield. You got Amari Cooper. You've got Elijah Moore. You got Donovan Peoples-Jones. You've got David Njoku. You can spread the field vertically. You can spread the field horizontally. You can create running lanes for Deshaun Watson. Nick Chubb, to his credit, and not a lot of people, want to talk about it. It's not that he's not a good receiver. I think the Browns have just said, that's when we'll choose to rest you is, obvious passing situations. He had the touchdown reception against the Pittsburgh Steelers to close the year out, where basically there was a linebacker reading Nick Chubb. He was reading reading Deshaun Watson, and basically, Nick Chubb moved so far away that, the linebacker had no choice but to commit to Deshaun Watson, which led for a wide open touchdown for Nick Chubb. And it's, the more acquisition was big because, we know Donovan can get vertical. Amari can still get vertical, time to time. Elijah Moore can get vertical. He is quick, yards after the catch. It's going to open things up. And, the Browns are going to be able to use basically every blade of grass on that field, offensively. And it's just going to make for a lot more easier throws for Deshaun, a lot more runs where he can just pick up 7-8 easy gimme yards. So for, Deshaun to adapt to it, and the changes that are going to be made. And for Coach Stefanski, he's got to change to Deshaun Watson, but it's not like anybody is ever upset with the fact that, I might have to change some things I do to accommodate a better talent. If that's the changes I have to make, what was me?
Yeah. Let me find a way to use more athleticism in my offense. Those are good. Those are good problems to have. So Amari Cooper had core muscle surgery. He did have surgery back in February. He talked about the additions to the wide receiving core and what it can mean on the field.
In a good way. Goodwin, he's real fast, and then Elijah. I feel like talent makes talent better. So, once we get to see everybody on the field, I think all the other guys will respect their talent, and it'll just make the team better overall.
Knowing about the style for those guys and the speed they bring, I guess, how do you feel like it complements what you do, what DPJ can do, the other guys that are still in that room from last season?
Yeah, I think it just gives us more opportunity as an offense, those guys being able to stretch the field, especially, Elijah as well. He's a South Florida guy, so, I already know what to expect. I've seen a lot of clips of him even before he got here with the route running and everything. So, like I said before, it's just gonna make everybody better.
And you hear it's something we touched on. You got to defend the entire width of the field as well as the length. And that's all the good. That's what the Chiefs do. That's what the Dolphins do. That's what fill in the blank really good NFL offenses do.
Look, I mean, it's real easy if you got a wide open guy 50 yards down the field to just hit him. But, the level of athlete, the level of overall speed that these players have nowadays, they should be able to win, working outside and up, just as easily as they can just going, straight down the field vertically. And when you blend all these guys together, and again, you can put all this personnel out there, and it's a pick your poison. Most NFL teams don't have 5 solid defensive backs. So, the matchup at the line, for Deshaun Watson, it's going to be okay. Oh, there it is. This one is not going to work for them. And then you got to throw in the fact that, maybe they'll try to double team so-and-so here, which means the other 4 guys are most likely going to get one-on-ones. I mean, you're going to be licking your chops here at some of these opportunities. Donovan Peoples-Jones, proven athlete. Amari Cooper, proven commodity at the position. Elijah Moore, a little bit of struggle with the Jets, not necessarily all his fault, but his tape at Ole Miss was fantastic. His athleticism is there. Then you bring in a guy like Goodwin as your, 4th, 5th possible wide receiver, a sprinter at the University of Texas, which doesn't come easy. And then you get to the 2 big tight ends who are just big athletic freaks, basically small forwards on the field. It's basically, if your defense is pick your poison because you're not going to be able to handle everybody. And, Deshaun, every now and then he's going to throw a bad throw, but he's going to throw more better throws than he's going to throw bad ones.
So Watson talked about what Moore and Goodwin, the additions, bring to this offense.
We have guys that have experience. We have guys that made a lot of plays for their organizations that they've been a part of. And we have guys that want to come in here and work. And, last year we were very young, but with those additions, with more experience and more, speed and talent, it's going to bring up everyone else. And, you just got to get the ball in these guys' hands and let them make plays. And that's what I want to do.
And that's something that he was really good at in Houston that they didn't really have the ability to do that as much as I think they wanted to last year.
Well, you look at some of the players in Houston who were really good players for Deshaun Watson. They barely sniffed any success in the league outside of Houston or even been in the league. Will Fuller, that was a popular name everybody wanted to put with the Browns last year. Never happened. Will Fuller still not in the NFL. Kenny Stills, another guy, who played well in Houston with him, didn't find a ton of success elsewhere. Elijah Moore, you talk about a guy here with the potential. He could probably lead this team in receptions. It wouldn't be that far off to think that Elijah Moore was, who led this team in receptions in 2023. Marquise Goodwin, you get back a little bit more to some of the other things you talk about. You want guys who have had playoff experience. You want guys who have played in Super Bowls. Well, Marquise Goodwin has done that. If this is what the expectation is and you're trying to get everybody else to buy in and believe that this is the expectation, it's good to have some guys in there that can say, oh, well, this is what it was like playing against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So you're just trying to build it, man, and you're trying to bring in guys that can contribute. And, you get to the thing where, even still, however you slice it, Amari Cooper could be the first option or fourth option. Donovan the second or the fourth. David Njoku the first or the fifth. Same with Elijah Moore. It really looks like this would be something, and I don't think you even have to get too crazy and too spectacular with how you're scheming this up, because you've got great players. Great players normally beat inferior players. It's just kind of the way it goes.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Deshaun Watson. We'll also hear more from Myles Garrett. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper talked about building chemistry and getting things rolling.
I'm very excited. I mean, he's one of the best route runners, if not the best route runner in the game. So with his experience, his talent, and the way that he played last year, of course, before he got hurt, but even when he got hurt, he was still making plays. I'm excited to be able to have him full go this upcoming season. And we're going to spend a lot of time, with each other. And once he get fully healthy, then we can really put the time in and the work.
I mean, that's why we're here, to get it better. Didn't really get to work out a lot with each other in the offseason because of the surgery. So, that's why we're both here, so that we can build more chemistry and continue to get better.
And, Jeff, when you think about it, Amari Cooper was probably about 60 to 75% last year because of that core injury. It'll be interesting to see those two if they are full go and can stay healthy.
You go to the Washington game last year. Obviously the first half was an absolute dud. The second half, and they weren't like, these, and it wasn't, we'll get wowed at times by Amari Cooper's route running, and, certainly so. But, the first one was basically just a square out. He beat his guy, took it down the sidelines. Then the other one was the all-day crosser over the middle where he was able to, use his yard after the catch ability to take it into the end zone. You saw just a little bit there of scratching the surface, but a lot of that was just, rudimentary football. I mean, that's something you could do at any 7-on-7 camp with guys who basically don't know each other. So the potential for what this could be, and now that Amari Cooper's, life should probably be even easier because, there's no way you can make him the main option that you're going to take out week in, week out, because if you do, you're probably going to get killed by other guys. It should set up very, very nicely for both these guys. And, Deshaun understands what he has there with Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper, who has bounced around, probably just that one game, against Washington in that second half, probably realized the type of guy he's got in Deshaun and the potential for, great relationship between these two this year, hopefully next year, maybe years to go on, should excite a lot of fans because, this team, if anything, should be able to put up a lot of yards. They should be able to put up a lot of points right now.
Well, the other thing that will be new is a new quarterback coach for Deshaun Watson, Alex Van Pelt. Watson seems more than happy with the new QB coach.
It's definitely good. It's not too big of a change. Drew did a heck of a job. He's going to do a heck of a job down in Arizona. Best of luck to Drew and his family and that organization. But, AVP, he has a different style of coaching and teaching. He played the game also at this level. And, with him being around guys that, play at the highest of the highest level, being in Green Bay and Cincinnati, and then coming back here is definitely, key for me. So I want to learn from him what he, the guys that he's been around when he was playing, but also the guys he coached. And I think that we can, really make something happen and do some great things together.
And what he's referring to, he was Aaron Rodgers, quarterback coach in Green Bay. So Deshaun is excited about that, and that's good.
No question. I mean, when you say somebody worked with Aaron Rodgers, that stands out to you. But I think a key point from that, also from Deshaun, is you're talking about a guy who played. Alex Van Pelt was an established player in 4 years at the University of Pittsburgh, had his time in the NFL. And there are certain guys who will maybe put a little more weight, a little more stock into something from a guy who's actually been there. Because, sometimes, something can be drawn up unless you've actually been in the situation or tried to make so-and-so happen, on a field, through a play, through a pass progression. I mean, a read progression, I should say. Every now and then you're going to have a coach, somebody who played and say, well, wait a minute, I don't know if this is necessarily going to work because that guy won't fall for that, but maybe 3% of the time. So I think for Deshaun, that's probably something that, I took away from that statement is it seems like he's excited about the fact that he understands, he can have some feedback back and forth. And, Alex Van Pelt can say, yeah, I've been there. I can see it, from trying it through, I can see it from trying it myself. I can see where maybe your confusion it is in either how we have it set it up or, my God, what if the safety does this? What if the linebacker doesn't drop on that? And sometimes it's a little easier to bounce back and be coached when somebody's actually done the same things that you're trying to do.
Yep. Speaking the same language, if you will. Here's another one. So Myles Garrett was asked about the whole Lamar Jackson contract situation.
It's a love-hate relationship. I like going against the best talent, but I'd have damn near 80 sacks if I could have got this guy down every time. And I want to see the best for him occur, but at the end of the day, whether he goes to the Ravens or somewhere else, someone's going to pick him up and he's going to play fantastic football somewhere. And I'm just looking forward to whoever that is, and if it's playing twice a year or once every 3-4 years, so be it.
You got to like the response. I'd have damn near 80 sacks if he'd gone down the whole time.
And the thing is it's you'll miss a sack every now and then. But, when it's somebody like Lamar, he's just going to make you straight up feel bad. You know what I'm saying? And then, the frustration goes because, I gave every drop of effort I had. And here I am still, basically ripping grass out of the field because I wasn't even close. Look, Baltimore, I don't know what the situation is. And it's just gotten progressively worse. As I said last year, the fact that he and Baker Mayfield were at the same point in their NFL contracts at the same time, coming in the league at the same time, made no sense to anybody whatsoever. And the longer it goes on, and my first reaction on Lamar Jackson's standpoint was you just gave Odell Beckham Jr. $15 million. The guy's coming off back-to-back AC. What do I got to do to get you guys to commit money to me? You just committed $15 million to a guy that, A, we're not really that sure about, and B, he's coming off of 2 ACLs. I appreciate the fact that you went to these lengths to get me this weapon, but it tells me even more, why am I even in this situation where you guys could not give me my money?
Yeah, I agree with you. And before we let you go real quick, take a look. The Eagles have agreed to a deal with Jalen Hurts, quarterback. 5 years, $255 million. Makes him the highest paid player in NFL history. Now, the guarantee you see is 180 roughly, and he gets no trade clause. By the end of this contract situations with all these quarterbacks, the Deshaun Watson contract is going to look reasonable. The guarantees are kind of out of whack, but you did what you needed to do to get him to come to Cleveland.
And this is, and I think, and look, we'll still go back to it, and everybody kind of knows what the outrage was. It wasn't necessarily the monetary amount. It was the situation that the player was in at the time. And, we saw it with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was the highest paid DN until, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, until he wasn't. Sometimes, there's always the line of, if you're the first to go, are you going to get the best? But, you have now Jalen Hurts satisfied. Joe Burrow's going to go for more money. He better go for more money. Justin Herbert most likely is going to go for equal money or more money. You have all these guys out there, and if they're, as good as they are, and most of them damn well are, at the end of the day, you're talking maybe 12 months, possibly less, maybe a little bit more, where Deshaun Watson's contract all of a sudden now is maybe a top 10 contract as opposed to being a top 3 contract.
Yep, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, Dave. All the best, everybody. And I guess we should close it with Go Cavs, right?
Absolutely. Cavs coming up. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him up on the Locked On Browns podcast. We're going to take a quick time out. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. We will preview Game 2. Cavs trailing the Knicks 1-0 in that best-of-7 series. Sports4CLE talking Cavs. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers, now down 1-0, getting ready for Game 2 against the Knicks. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, a subject we brought up a month ago concerning the Cleveland Browns, we now must bring up about the Cleveland Cavaliers, the lack of aggressiveness, passion, desire to make it to the next level. We will find out quickly the maturity level of Mobley and Allen, that their level of play during the regular season is not enough in the playoffs. Their speed of the game must increase drastically, and their desire to rebound and shoot the ball must increase dramatically. And Coach Bickerstaff is going to have to make game adjustments and substitutions more quickly to find the right man defensively as well as the hot hand offensively. The time to figure it out is now, or the playoff run will be short-lived.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Sam, I don't know about aggressiveness. They seem to be out of position and just maybe a little frenetic.
Yeah. Dave, when I at the game, and my first thought was when they went down 9-2, this looks like Donovan Mitchell and 4 guys who have never been here before. Even though Jared Allen had been for a cup of coffee before. I think that they were out of sorts for most of the game, and obviously that really impacted their rebounding. Weren't all the way in there. I think they were thinking about the moment a little bit, even subconsciously. I don't think it was a conscious thing. It's like, wow, this is a little bit different than regular season basketball, as we suspected the younger core might do. But it cost them in the fact that the first 3 quarters, they were out of position a lot, when it came to defensive rebounding, and that's one of their strengths all season. The Knicks are a very good and have been very good all season offensive rebounding team, but to let the Knicks get 17 offensive rebounds, you're just not going to win in the playoffs that much, if at all. And, I think we saw the worst part of this whole thing was that the Cavs made the run in the fourth quarter, came back, had a shot to win it. And then again, the Knicks get Josh Hart gets another key offensive rebound, and that puts the game away for all intents and purposes. So I'm sure the rebounding was a focus point of the last 2 days when they're watching film and going through practice and all that. And hopefully for the Cavs' sake, they're able to clean it up on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and along those lines, J.B. Bickerstaff talked exactly about that, the offensive rebounding that they allowed the Knicks to do.
You can't be dominated on the glass and expect to win. So You go back and you watch the film and you can see it clearly. Our guys watch the film and they can see it and they know they need to be better.
When everyone's got to deal with a guy who's bigger, stronger, and more experienced, how does he combat that to be able to get those rebounds that you guys need?
I mean, there's always leverage. There's positioning and there's being there and being where you need to be earlier. Mitchell Robinson, what he does and how he impacts the game, he's done that against everybody. For us, it's not just a one-person job to keep him off the glass. And I think too many times when you looked at it, it was a one-on-one fight. And we need to turn it into a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1, whatever we have to do to make sure that we gain the advantage.
What was it that you think most attributed to their rebound discrepancy?
The offensive rebounds, and it's something that we talked about, we were out of position a lot. And, when you let their ball handlers penetrate the paint and your big guys have to come and challenge shots late, it gives them an offensive rebounding advantage. So we need to make sure we're focusing on how we contain the basketball and where we send the basketball to do that.
And that last part is key. The Knicks were getting to the spots they wanted to get to. And you can't, playoff basketball, it's all about keeping guys from where they want to get to.
It's very, very cognizant. The Cavs have to be very cognizant of what he just said, is be more aware of those spots and block out and do the fundamentals, box out, go toward the basketball, beat the opposing player to spot. So, it's just something that you really have to focus on. The Knicks have beaten teams that way all season, and if you're the Cavs and you're already dealing with a little bit of your first time in the playoff jitters for a lot of these guys, there's just a lot to take in. So, maybe if they settle down and they're more aware of that, that's something that they'll be able to repair in game two. Despite all of that, Dave, the good news is they had a shot to win in the final moments, with the exception of that last offensive rebound. The Cavs certainly didn't play their best game, but they also didn't play their worst, and they're right there. And, with that, they should use the momentum that they had in the fourth quarter of the last game and carry that over to this game. And then good things will happen, and they'll be fine heading to Madison Square Garden over the weekend.
Yeah, and the good news is the Knicks are not invincible by any stretch of the imagination at home. But again, what do you need to see in Game 2 to make you think the Cavs are going to win?
Well, really in Game 1, you had Donovan Mitchell going nuts, and then you didn't know what you were going to get from anybody else. Tonight, you need to know what you're going to get from somebody else. Somebody else has to step up. Darius Garland was very quiet in the second half of that game. Really, the second best player on the team in the second half was Cedi Osman. And, so you need one of your regular guys to do their job and to have a productive night, particularly in the final 24 minutes, whether it's Darius Garland, Evan Mobley. I thought Jared Allen had a nice game, so, there's no fault of his. And Karis LeVert and Isaac Okoro really struggled. We've said all along, Dave, that these series so often come down to A, the little things, such as getting rebounds at the defensive end, and B, your role players. The Cavs just did not get any production at all from the role players outside of Cedi, and even he was a little spotty. But you need Garland, you need Mobley, you need Allen, and then you need somebody else to come through. Just like the Knicks got with Julius Randle in Game 1. They got their production with Josh Hart, They got their production from Julius Randle. They got their production from Jalen Brunson. They needed somebody else to step up, and that was Josh Hart. Well, the Cavs are going to have something similar happen to even this series and start feeling good about themselves again.
J.B. Bickerstaff talked about the pace of play, which it wasn't bad, and the Cavs' half-court style.
It's beneficial for us, because we typically play at a slower pace. There are times in the games where you just need an easy basket. And even in that, I thought, they did a better job of scoring off of our turnovers than we did. And I think there's opportunities there for us, when we do turn people over, to get out and transition and get some broken floor disadvantage plays.
And I agree with him that it's almost like the Cavs were trying to make an extra pass too often. They had the open shot, and they were trying to make an extra pass and be on top. Just take the easy shot.
Yeah, right. It was too much thinking. Looked like a little bit, especially early. And young players, again, you get into your first playoff series, it's human nature to think, well, I don't want to be the guy who messes up, so I'm just giving the ball to somebody else. But, the key to the Cavs' success this season is because they've not been afraid to make mistakes and they've been aggressive. And I really thought, obviously, as he's done all year, Donovan Mitchell really led by example. I mean, obviously super talented, best player on the floor, but he takes a lot of risks. Now, you don't want to take a lot of risks unless you're talented as Donovan Mitchell, but you don't want to go the other way either, where you're playing tentative and hesitant and not as aggressive as you should be. So I think we saw a lot of what people were predicting in game one, which was the Cavs players who have not been in the playoffs before came out looking fairly nervous. And I don't even want to say nervous, just tentative. And, their success is built on them having a lot of confidence and really taking it to the opponent, which they started to do in the fourth quarter. But, by then it was a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, and it also looked like the Knicks kind of out-Cav'd the Cavs. They were getting the 50-50 balls. They were doing all the scrappy things that the Cavs have hung their hat on all season long.
Yeah, that's Tom Thibodeau coach team right there. I mean, the Knicks look like those old Bulls teams with Derrick Rose and those guys and Taj Gibson. And, these Knicks are just really a reflection of Thibodeau's coaching style. Josh Hart in particular is the ultimate Tom Thibodeau player, a guy who does a little bit of everything, defends, plays smart, plays hard. The Cavs just have to be cognizant of that. This isn't your typical number 5 seed in the playoffs. This is a very, very well-coached team with some real star and some real talent in the likes of Randall and Brunson and Hart and even Mitchell Robinson. He doesn't put up a lot of numbers, but we saw what he can do on the glass and when it comes to defense, and kind of does a good job countering Jared Allen. So if you're the Cavs, you've got to get that kind of that swagger back in game 2, or this series is going to be short, because like you said, Dave, a lot of the Cavs basketball this season and their success is kind of built on that confidence and swagger and aggressiveness, and wasn't there for a large portion of the first 3 quarters from anybody but Donovan Mitchell.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll continue talking Cavs, looking ahead to game 2 tonight, trying to even that series with the Knicks at 1 apiece. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Cavs getting ready for game 2 against the Knicks. We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about his team's attitude being down 1-0 to the Knicks.
I think we've been good. Again, I do feel like, our guys are confident in who they are and what they're capable of doing, and believe they can get the job done. I think the emotions come when there's some insecurities about who you are. And, I think our guys are confident and believe in themselves. Last night kind of helps prove a point to a young group of guys where, you look around the league, and a lot of teams lost, the home court. But those teams don't panic. Like those teams who have that experience know where they have to go in order to get better. Our guys don't have that same level of playoff experience, but they know the well that they can go to when they need to call upon it.
And Sam, the other thing that's a big thing is I still think Donovan Mitchell's the best player on the court, and that's usually what it comes down to in close playoff series.
Yeah, I talked to an opposing GM the other day about this series after the Cavs had lost, and a guy in the Western Conference, and he said he still thinks Donovan Mitchell's going to be enough to carry them to a win in this series. And look, and I tweeted this out today, Dave. The Cavs' two biggest playoff series wins in franchise history, they were down 1-0. That was 1976 Miracle Richfield season against the Bullets, and then of course the 2016 championship season, they were down 1-0 against the Warriors. So, one game does not make a series. The Cavs can turn this around, and really, Dave, we hear this all the time, and we've heard it for years and years, the whole one game at a time thing. But really, that's the approach you have to take, because the only people who are really looking ahead are, the fans and guys like us are kind of looking ahead. Well, can they get up 2-1, which they can. You got it, but you got to take care of business now. This is, game 2 of your first playoff series in 25 years without LeBron James. All of a sudden is a must win. So that's where they are today. You do that. I think Coach Bickerstaff is right. It's not in their nature to be down about this or hanging their heads. If anything, now they've woken up and they're motivated. The Cavs are, and you win tonight, and then you go and get game 3 in New York, and all of a sudden it's a totally different narrative surrounding this series. And even if you lose that game 3 in New York, you're still only down 2-1. You still got an opportunity to get another one in New York. So, there's no reason to and we tend to do that. Teams down 1-0 come back and win series all the time. But it's human nature to say you're down 1-0. Oh boy, you're really in trouble. When in reality, you're not in trouble until somebody wins that 4th game of the series. Then it's over.
So Darius Garland had just 1 assist, 5 turnovers. Those are he's going to score points just because of who he is. How do you end up? The 1 assist is more concerning than anything because he's usually a guy that's facilitating and creating this offense.
Yeah, the Knicks did a good job of taking that away from him, right from the bat, right from opening tip. And I think his first turnover came 45 seconds, a minute into the game when the Knicks were running a lot of length at him. They were blitzing him and running a long defender and R.J. Barrett at him. So he had 2 guys right on him right away. As suspected, the Knicks were going to take the ball out of his hands, and they never gave that up, and they're probably not going to give that up in game 2. So in Garland's defense, he was kind of the guy who was making the pass that led to the pass for an open shot. And he had a lot of passes there in the second half, I will say, that kind of, open shots for his teammates, and they didn't knock him down. But, the Cavs are going to have to counter this where the Knicks are running 2 defenders at him. And the simple solution is Darius Garland gets rid of the ball faster, as opposed to dribbling up and waiting for the Knicks to blitz him. He's just going to have to get rid of the ball faster and set up the offense a lot higher, maybe at half court, because that's what the Knicks want to do. They want to get the ball out of his hands. And if they're double teaming him, he's going to have to, look for help, and that can cause problems if he picks up his dribble. So I suspect we'll see more assists from him in game 2. The Cavs probably have adjusted to that, watched the film, and saw what the Knicks were doing. But it did work. I think in that sense, you don't blame Garland as much as you credit the Knicks defense.
Yeah, the other thing is get rid of the ball quicker, and then he gets it back and doesn't allow the double team to react. And that's how you get the ball back in his hands. So I'm with you. Let me ask you this. What do we need to see early in this game 2 to feel good about what's going on with the Cavs, do you think?
I think more than anything, it's, they did a nice job defensively. The funny thing is, Dave, I looked at the stats at the end of the third quarter, and the Knicks were up 78-70, but we're only shooting 22% on threes. So continue to do what you were doing in game one defensively, but go get the ball off the backboard on all those missed shots. That's really the difference. So I think, game one, it's just really a matter of running your stuff, not letting things, not letting the Knicks' physical play impact you and pull you off your spots. You've got to respond when they're physical and fight for your spot, fight for positioning, whether that's to get positioning on offense under the basket if you're Evan Mobley, or whether it's, being physical as an entire team to go get these rebounds. Really, that's what it boils down to, because you know what? You can miss shots and not have a great night offensively and still make an impact and still win the game. I thought Karis LeVert, who really struggled offensively, did do a very nice job for the most part defensively, getting in passing lanes, containing his man a little bit. So as a team, that's a good lesson. It's, look, you got to let the missed shots go and all that stuff go. Go do the little things, because in the NBA playoffs, the little things can really mean a lot towards a victory. And the Knicks just showed that the other night, because they didn't shoot the ball well either, and still ended up winning the game. So I think if we see the Cavs getting loose balls, getting rebounds, getting deflections, those things are all good signs if they can do that right away.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the other thing is, I thought the game was played at the pace the Cavs wanted to play at, that 101-97 score. If it's played at that pace instead of in the 115 to 120 range, Cavs win that game most of the time, I believe. Before we go, let's take a look at this. Really interesting. This is from NBA on ESPN. Donovan Mitchell is up to 1,143 career playoff points. The only players with more points through their first 40 postseason games, and these are Hall of Fame guys: Jordan, Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Allen Iverson, Oscar Robertson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's how good the guy wearing 45 for the Cavaliers is during the postseason. Those are, if you're on a list with those guys, you're in pretty good company.
Yeah, that's good company for sure. I think with Donovan Mitchell, just continues to amaze. Just the way he's able to get to his spots. He makes it look so effortless. He makes it look like he's moving in slow motion, frankly, because or at least the defenders are in slow motion. But he's just able to get to his spots, get his shots. He's so comfortable taking threes, and you have to play off of him a little bit if you're a defender and let him take those threes and hope he misses, because otherwise he's just going to go right around you. So just his pure determination. I mean, obviously, phenomenal natural athlete, but, here's a guy, very obviously, when you combine natural athleticism with someone who puts in the work in the off season, that's the stuff we don't see, is him working on the fundamentals. And as great of a natural athlete as Donovan Mitchell is, he's even more fundamentally sound. He's one of the most fundamentally sound guys in the league. And that's really where he gets his edge, is what we don't see, his work in the gym during the off season, after practices, those type of things. And, just a great example to have around the rest of the team. Great attitude. Is just a guy who is always there for his teammates. And, look, that's greatness. When you raise your game to another level in the postseason, especially when you already had, an all-NBA season during the regular season, to raise your game every year in the playoffs, you're going to be in very good company.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Appreciate the time and the insight. We're going to check back in with you tomorrow to kind of relive Game 2, see what went right, what went wrong. Appreciate it very much, Sam. Thanks very much.
All right, Dave. Thanks for having me, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Make sure you check him out, all things Cavs and NBA as well. We're going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, Peter Carfagna from Harvard Sports Law talking about what's going on with MLB and Bally's. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports for CLE continues. We turn our attention to baseball and the rights battle going on between Bally's parent company, Diamond Sports, and major league teams like the Cleveland Guardians. So Bally's parent company, Diamond Sports, has filed bankruptcy, and it's a little bit of a mess. They failed to make payments to teams, and while they're missing those payments and demanding the teams agree to reduced rights fees, Bally Sports is one of 19 of the regional sports networks, being the ones that own the Indians, right? Bally's Great Lakes. On Tuesday, MLB responded to Diamond Sports' objection to their motion that it was nothing more than a tactic to delay the payment of the club's telecast rights fees even further. MLB said if Diamond wasn't happy with the rights that were negotiated, the bankruptcy filing would allow them to terminate the agreements and the rights would revert back to the teams. Diamond Sports is trying to have it both ways. MLB argued they want to continue using the club's intellectual properties and telecast rights because they recognize how fundamental these rights are to their business. For without them, they can't generate revenue, and they simply do not want to pay for them what they have negotiated. Let's welcome in Peter Carfagna, Faculty Director of Sports Law at Harvard Law, and a friend of the program. Peter, appreciate the time. When you look at these filings, and I know you've kind of followed them and looked at them, what's your read of this?
David, I think, once you go into bankruptcy, the trustee in bankruptcy is going to determine everything. So, you can shout and yell and try to blow the house down, but the bankruptcy trustee is going to determine who gets paid what coming out of bankruptcy. So I really do think there will be, at the end of the day, at the end of the bankruptcy, a much lower fee paid for the guardians' rights and the others, depending on what the market would bear.
When you look at it, there isn't really another option either because Disney can't get back into it. So you're kind of stuck with this, correct?
Absolutely, and this was an $8 billion, purchase when they bought all these regional sports networks. And Diamond is separate from Sinclair. We know that. Sinclair is the parent, they own 90% of the newly formed entity, Diamond. But now they put it into a separate, independent subsidiary, if you will. And there's $8 billion in debt. And like we talked about in the prep session, the interest on that debt is just overwhelming given current interest rates. So there was no choice but for Diamond to go into bankruptcy and take these contracts with them.
When you look at MLB's arguing that, if they default on one of them, they default on all of them, is there does MLB have any chance of winning that argument in your mind?
I love MLB. I mean, I have a former student who's right in the middle of this, and I dared not talk to him before this, but honestly, any bankruptcy, they're going to measure the value of the contract, and the bankruptcy trustee is going to decide what it's worth before they discharge, on the other side. So to be careful what you wish for. I don't see a reversion here. I see a sort of a monetization at whatever the market rate would be. It's $55 million with the Guardians. It's maybe 20% of their total revenues, from what we can tell, and I don't think it's going to be that much at the end of the day. I don't think the bankruptcy trustee is going to value it at that level. So
the bottom line is, it appears Diamond made a bad deal, but they're going to find a way to get out of the bad. Is that, in layman's term, it was a bad business deal, but they're going to find a way to not be harmed by their bad business deal?
That's what bankruptcy's for, you know, in a way to restructure, reorganize, you know, go into the Chapter 11 protections. And yeah, I mean, it was just too much debt. Like we said in the prep session, I mean, 8 billion reasons why with cord cutting, they just weren't able to make the revenues flow to be able to pay the interest, let alone the principal. So they backed themselves into a corner and they did what any smart company would do, and that is to renegotiate with their creditors in the bankruptcy, essentially give the company to the main creditors. That's what's going to happen on the other side. And anybody who has a contractual relationship, that'll be valued by the trustee, and it'll be discharged in bankruptcy, or you could object to that valuation.
Now, the creditors are the people, it really isn't the guardians, it's the people that they finance the deal with, correct? Those are the ones that are going to...
Right. They're gonna be made whole by getting equity in this new company on the other side of bankruptcy. And right, and the secured creditors are going to be made as whole as possible. Right, there's like 3 or 4 different lines of bondholders here that finance the 8 billion, and they'll be paid off because they're secured. You know, probably 100 cents on the dollar, and everybody who's not secured will get you know, as much as is left over.
Now, MLB is trying to find a way to set up something that they own. Do they have any chance do they have any chance at all of making that happen?
I don't see it until the contracts expire. Like some of them do expire at the end of 2023. I could see them trying to get the regional rights and streaming and all, like they've talked about, the regionalization. But as we talked about in our prep session, the fact that so many of the big market teams have their captive networks, they're not going to be able to, you know, grab into the YES network or the LA Dodgers or any of those big. So maybe they could possibly stream together some regional streaming rights, maybe. But then it'd be up to negotiation between, you know, the ownership group of the Guardians and MLB, and it'd have to be an arm's length negotiation, or the other MLB owners would object.
And the other thing that we said is, so the biggest disparity in revenues in Major League Baseball is local TV rights, and this seems to be only helping the bigger markets that have the established deals that aren't with Diamond Sports.
Amen. I mean, you see what the Mets did in the offseason, Cohen, a multi-billionaire. You see captive, you know, Red Sox, Nesson, you know, on a YES network, the Yankees. I mean, it gives them, they can make mistakes. They can make multi-million-dollar mistakes, and their media rights are going to pay for it. Not so for the middle market teams, or smaller market teams like the Guardians. So
the hope that this would in fact kind of lessen that, it makes it really wider, correct?
Yeah. I'm afraid so. I mean, the cord cutting, we talked about it. Cord cutting is just killing, you know, the cable operators, and streaming is the future, and monetizing that streaming will be the Guardians' challenge at a price point that's, you know, that consumers are going to go for. And if not, then MLB, it could revert to MLB at the end of whatever the contract term is with Bally.
Peter Carfagna, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Peter.
Always a pleasure, David. All the best. Good luck. Take care.
Peter Carfagna, he is the head of sports law for Harvard Law, giving us the inside of what's going on legally between Major League Baseball and Diamond Sports, which owns all of the Bally's regional sports networks. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.